In this lesson, we'll learn how to use a layer style to enhance the pixel data on specific layers. Okay, fantastic. So this is the Lesson 8 Begin file. If you'd like to follow along with me, feel free. So this particular file has 3 different layers in here besides the background layer. We've kind of got this logo separated out into where we've got our courthouse here. You can see if I hide that layer. We've got the name Griffin on this Type 1 layer, and then and Associates is on this Type 2 layer. So now we learned in the last lesson how the Layers panel works here inside of Photoshop. But we can actually access what's known as a layer style within this panel that can be applied to specific layers. Let me show you what I mean here. So we can go ahead and come up here and select our courthouse layer, and I'm simply going to double click on the layer thumbnail here. Now you could also double click out here to the right of the layer name, but if we double click on that layer thumbnail, you'll get this layer style dialog. I'm going to just cancel that right now and show you that down here at the bottom of your layers panel, there's a small FX button, and you can access several of these effects or layer styles through that menu there. I apologize when I click that, it's actually expanding outside of the recording area, but let's go ahead and just double click on our layer thumbnail here, and we'll access the layer styles. So the first thing here is our blending options. We're not going to spend a lot of time here because most of the styles that we can apply to a layer are contained below that here. So you can see that we have things like bevel and emboss, we have our stroke, we can apply an inner shadow or an inner glow, a satin style to the particular layer, and so on and so forth. So now we can also, with this dialog open, use our Control Spacebar keyboard shortcut to move around, and our Spacebar shortcut to kind of pan. So if we wanted to sort of move this to the side so we can get a nice clear view of this, we can. So let's go ahead and turn on our bevel and emboss here. Now that may not be very apparent to you, but if I zoom in over here to the right, you can kind of see that we've added sort of a bevel to some of the edges here. Now, inside each one of these styles, if we have that style selected, you can see a lot of different options here. Now, each one of these styles are going to contain a little different options and settings for configuring the style, but there's several things that you'll recognize as the same from style to style. So in the case of the bevel and emboss style, you can see here we can specify the style type here, whether it's an inner bevel, an outer bevel, whether it's an emboss effect, or even pillow emboss or stroke emboss. So we'll just leave that on outer bevel here. And we can actually specify the technique. So right now we're using a smooth technique. There's chisel hard and chisel soft as well. So let's go ahead and ramp up the depth a little bit. And you can see right now we are using an outer bevel in the up direction. We can also change that to the down direction, but I'm just going to go ahead and ramp up the size of that too so we can begin to see this here. Now, looking at the outer bevel, the pieces of this logo are starting to touch, so we might even come in and look at sort of an inner bevel effect here. And with this particular effect selected and configured, I'm actually going to check out what chisel hard looks like. There we go. We get kind of a nice crisp edge. It's creating almost sort of a three-dimensional look. Now, in the case of this particular logo, it's white data on a black background, so we might actually look at coming in and maybe applying some color to our pixel data through a layer style. And we can do that by adding a color overlay. So if I go ahead and click on the color overlay here, you'll see that it instantly turns my logo red. That's the default color here. But you can see there's much fewer options here for configuring the color overlay. We have a blend mode option, very similar to our layers panel over here where we have a blend mode. We can come in and basically change how this particular color overlay is reacting with the information underneath it. So let's just go ahead and click on this little red square out to the right, and this is going to bring up our color picker. Now we're not going to spend a lot of time on this dialog because we'll actually be going over it in an upcoming lesson, but I'm just going to come over here and select kind of a dark gray color in this big square on the left, maybe something like that. And that way we can see kind of that bevel effect a little bit more clearly. So we could come up here at this point and maybe even configure this a little bit more. You can kind of affect the light source here with this little wheel under shading by simply clicking on that little dot and dragging that around. You can kind of see how that changes based on the position here. I'm going to leave that about where it was. Let's come down here and take a look at a couple more. We'll come down here and select this stroke option here. And if we select that, you'll see here that the default color for this is black. So let's come over here and just click on that square again and change our color to white. And you can kind of see what that looks like. Now, I'm actually going to come down here and just kind of select maybe a light gray color, something like that. And we'll hit OK, but we can also come in here and change the size of that stroke. So in this case, it's a 3 pixel stroke. We can come in and maybe change that to a 2 or a 1 pixel. We can change the position of the stroke. Let me just increase the size so we can see this a little bit better. Right now it's outside the edges of the graphic, but we can actually change that to the inside, sort of like that, which makes it a little difficult to see with our bevel and emboss style. Or we can actually have that stroke straddle the edge, half of it being on the inside and half being on the outside. So I'm going to switch that back to outside and maybe 2 pixels. We can also come over here and again change the blend mode or the opacity of the stroke. So maybe we want to adjust one of those settings here. Now in this case we're using a color to fill our stroke with, but we also can drop this little menu down and choose either a gradient or a pattern if we wanted to as well. So this is the stroke layer style. Again, just one of the many different layer styles we can apply here. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on this dialog. So we've got our stroke, or rather our style, applied. Now look what happened underneath my layer. We now have a little FX icon out to the side, and we also have the word effects here, and sort of nested underneath it in sort of a bulleted fashion we have each of the 3 effects that we apply: the bevel and emboss, the stroke, and the color overlay. Now we can come in here with these little eyeballs next to them and hide either all of the effects, or we can come in and hide one layer style at a time. Maybe we don't want that stroke after all. So now what's really cool about these layer styles is once we've configured them for one particular layer, we can actually quickly and easily come over and duplicate them to additional layers. Maybe we want to begin to do something down here with our text as well. So with that said, there's a couple of ways we can do this. The first way, all we need to do is right-click on the layer itself with the style applied, and there's going to be this Copy Layer Style option here. So if we were to copy that layer style, come down here and select our Type 01 layer, which is going to be where the word Griffin is. We can actually right-click on that layer and choose to paste the layer style. And you can see that layer style gets pasted right in underneath this layer. Now, once you get lots of layer styles in here, what I like to do is come in and hit this little button to the right. And what that'll actually do is collapse those layer styles and hide them. But we still know that they are there because there's this small FX icon here. So let's go ahead and expand that Type 01. Another way, and I think a much quicker way to duplicate a layer style between layers, is to hold down your Alt key and simply drag that layer style. And you'll notice I have sort of a ghosted FX icon next to my cursor. So I'll just Alt drag that down, and you can see we can target Type 02 here. And I'll come in and just drop that down there. And you can see we have replicated that layer style down to the second type layer here as well. Now, in the case of our type, we might want to come in and begin to adjust the bevel and emboss effect, because with the settings up here with these bigger shapes, we're getting a much tighter emboss down here, and it's actually making maybe this type down here for And Associates a little bit hard to read. So I might even come in here and think about hiding the stroke or reconfiguring some of these styles. Now we can again quickly and easily get to those layer styles for these layers that we've duplicated the style to by simply double clicking on the layer icon there, and you can see here we have all of the settings for our layer styles. All right, great. So in this lesson, we've learned how to enhance our layers inside of Photoshop using layer styles. These are really, really valuable tools to keep in mind, and really there's a number of different ways that you can use them. Have some fun experimenting with these in between lessons, and when you come back in the next lesson, we're going to focus on this Move tool right here and learn how we can use this Move tool to select the various elements in our layer stack.